And then that bear actually like reared up on its hind legs. And I was like, oh no. I was like, oh no. Like, this is actually real. It's the first time a bear hasn't been afraid of me.
Our next guest to join the Odd Tandem is a world record-breaking ultra marathon rider. She's won the biggest bikepacking races and even secured overall victories, beating the men at the toughest competitions in her sport. She's also just become the fastest woman to travel around the world after crossing the globe and climbing the equivalent of Mount Everest 22 times in the process. And she's done it with a smile on her face. Yenzi, this is one of those ones that episodes that you should watch, because I thought that her muscles in her face were going to just snap from smiling the entire time.
She's got to be one of the happiest guests we ever had on this podcast. And the way she explained it, even in, the toughest moments on her adventures, she still saw the light somewhere at the end of the tunnel, in the middle of Australia or whatever, in the middle of some forest in Canada. I get this done somehow. Absolutely mind-blowing, fantastic and fascinating person. And a lovely person as well.
So sit back, relax, and listen to our great conversation with Lael Wilcox. All right, welcome Lael Wilcox to the Odd Tandem.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we have to start by saying congratulations. Less than a month ago, you became the fastest woman ever to cycle around the world. How does that feel to have achieved that goal?
Oh, it feels incredible. Biggest ride of my life and the best one too. So I am just totally thrilled and relieved to be safe and home and everything's good.
Before we go into the more serious part of the questioning, we have this little set of 4 quickfire questions for you. So please give us a quick answer, and if there's options, pick one. Are you ready?
Yes.
Alrighty. Best country to ride your bike in?
New Zealand.
Biggest animal you have ever encountered en route?
Kangaroo.
Kangaroo, oh, yeah, they are tricky. Time trialing or racing the pack?
Racing.
Most miles you covered in one single day?
400.
Miles?
Miles. That was
Holy
my
smokes.
first road race. It technically took 27 hours, but nonstop.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. Well, I got to hear more about this race around the world. I mean, first of all, what motivated you to take up this challenge?
Oh, this is like the capstone of my career in cycling. It was so cool. Just the storybook vision of riding your bike around the world and doing it competitively and seeing what that meant. I've wanted to do this since 2016. And that came up because I was doing a race across the U.S. called the TransAm bike race. To get to the start of the race, I was riding down from Anchorage, Alaska, my home, to Astoria, Oregon. And during that ride to the start, I thought, what if the race across the U.S. was the start of my ride around the world? So I got a new passport, and that's it. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any plan. I didn't have any route. But I had this kind of fire where I was like, I want to do that. But I finished that race, and I actually won it overall, beating the whole field, all the guys too. And I was smoked. And I was sick of riding, and I didn't even want to look at my bike, and it was not the time for me to keep going. But I had it in the back of my mind since then. And then it took me so long to come around to it 8 years later, because I felt hesitant to spend so much time on paved roads and traffic. So I thought, I don't know if the risk is worth it. I love my family, and I don't want to have them face me getting killed on the road, getting hit by a car. But it was still there. And so I switched to mostly just gravel, mountain bike, sometimes in the snow, but out of most traffic. And then I came back around to it because I was actually riding from where I live now, Tucson, Arizona, up to Banff, Canada, to the start of a race that takes dirt roads down the Rockies. And I was riding road to get to the start, like 6,000 kilometers as training for the race. And I loved it so much, just being back on the road, climbing passes, just the kind of effortless ease of road riding that I was like, I gotta do this. But I thought, I'm going to pick the safest route I can. I'm going to wear a high-vis vest. I'm going to have lights. I'm going to have reflection off my bike. And I'm not going to be sleep deprived. And this is how I'm going to try to stay safe. And it worked. So big relief. That's riding. It's a risk. Crashing is a risk. Getting hit by a car is a risk. But we do our best to not have those things happen.
So from the first pencil stroke on paper, this is going to be my route, until you actually started pedaling, how much time in between you're really starting to write down your plan until you actually put that into action? 1 month, 1 year, or how long?
I probably really started it mid-January, and I started the ride end of May. So a few months. I asked for help with the route because I was really overwhelmed by Europe. There's so many roads. There's so many options. I'm from Alaska. To get from Alaska 3,000 kilometers down to the rest of the U.S., there are like 5 turns. I was like, this is a lot more involved. There are a lot more people. There are a lot more countries. There are more borders to cross, and I knew, and I had like a lot of hope for the route. I wanted it to be really beautiful because that's the riding I like to do in the mountains, not the fastest, of course, but I was like, I want this to be a really awesome route where I enjoy the experience of this challenge. So I asked a couple of friends that live in Italy that are master route builders to design the route through Europe, and they did such a good job. It was so cool. It's like I started from Porto, Portugal, and then I just climbed my way through Portugal and Spain up into France, hugging the West Coast, up through Belgium, the Netherlands, down through Germany, through the Alps and the Balkans, across Turkey to Georgia. And man, it was magnificent. And the other thing is I didn't really look ahead. I didn't look at the route. I trusted them. I was like, this is going to be fun. I'm just going to wing it. And it worked.
I am just in awe. And one of the things that you mentioned that just jumped off the page at me right away was sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
Yenzi, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but we were in like the Tour de Pont, and there was this one rider who was racing for this team called Coors Light, and it was a really boring stage, like 8th stage. This kid fell asleep when we were in the peloton and missed a turn, and basically just awoke as he was gently rolled into this ditch. And after that, his nickname was Sleepy, because like who falls asleep? But what are your tricks for not being sleep deprived when you're trying to set a world record around the globe?
I mean, this is so funny because like the trick is to sleep. It's like, okay, so I've been doing this style of racing for 10 years, and I have gone really far into sleep deprivation, like not sleeping for 50 hours in pursuit of like a mountain bike FKT. And that gets really weird. You hallucinate, and then you learn how to like trick your brain to stay up. But then for this ride, I was like, this is going to take me 3.5 months. That is not going to help me achieve this goal. I'm going to sleep, and I'm going to be efficient with my time, but I'm going to prioritize sleep. And I think I can get the average daily distance I want done and still sleep for 7 hours a night. And that was kind of like that was my best guess of how I could do it, and then I learned so much in this ride because I actually physically and mentally recovered every day, which is the first ever. Usually if a race takes 2 weeks, I sleep for 4 hours a night. If a race takes 2 days, I don't sleep at all. And that's tough. But this one, I felt good. Every day I woke up and I was like, yeah, I want to ride my bike. This is fun. And I mean, actually in the beginning I was sleeping 6 hours, and then I was like, that's not enough. And it all felt like kind of a big experiment, but fun to kind of alter like the strategy, the hours I had in the day, and see where I could fit it all in. And I learned a lot.
And I believe you did not have a pre-booked hotel every night, right? So you would have a sleeping bag and a little tent with you. How long would it take you at night to build up your camp? And how long does it take in the morning to pack it all up and store it on your bike?
Oh, to do that stuff, it probably takes about 5 minutes. But really, for
Wow.
this ride, I packed all that gear, but I tried to stay in hotels or Airbnbs as much as I could, because I could, and because it wasn't so remote. So like riding through Europe, there's a town every 30K. It's like you can plan it out where you can find places to stay. I had to sleep out in Australia and Alaska and northern Canada because the distances between resources is just too vast. But really, I'm on the road system, so generally there's somewhere to stay. And I just prioritize sleep. I thought if I sleep inside, I can take a shower, I'll get better sleep. There's maybe the hotel has a breakfast. I can eat real breakfast the next day. So it seemed like the most economical way to spend my time. So I stayed in, I slept somewhere different for 108 days. And then I went on a trip a week after I finished with my family. I went on this my mom's 68, my dad's 75, and my aunts and uncles came, and I packed a tent and I woke up in it in the night, and I thought, what hotel am I in? Because I was so used to waking up in a hotel, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in my tent. I'm totally comfortable and everything's great. But the headspace of being somewhere different every single night. Sometimes I'd wake up in a hotel and have no idea where in the world I was at all. It was weird, to be out there for that long after a single goal. In some ways, it was like the weirdest, but also maybe my easiest summer because I didn't have to shift mentalities. I just stuck with it.
I'm just having a hard visual of this. Like, are you like walking into a lobby of a hotel with your cycling shoes, just clod hopping through the lobby, going up to the front desk and asking, hey, can I sleep here tonight? Or did you actually have it kind of planned? Because if you're riding, okay, you decide enough is enough for today.
Yeah.
But that hotel could be closed, it could be booked. I mean, it just seems like it's a logistical nightmare to do something like that.
It is a little crazy, but there's either you pop in and ask, or often I'd use like Booking.com, and I have like the setup on my bike. I don't know if you guys have seen a photo of this, but it's like a endurance road bike with aero bars, with a bag on the front with my sleep gear, and little pockets where I can fit like sandwiches and pieces of pizza where I'm eating from. And then I have Wahoo for navigation, a light underneath that's a dynamo, and then right in the middle is my phone on a quad lock. So then I would use my phone as like this little power station where I'm like, Booking.com, how far am I going to go? When will I get there? Book. Okay, I need some food. Where's the bakery? Look for it, navigate to the bakery, get back to where I'm going. I mean, it was like the resources we have now make this stuff logistically so much easier. When I started this kind of adventure racing, it was pre-GPS. It was paper maps. I mean, that is totally different. Talk about missing a turn. It's like now you just follow an arrow. I mean, this is insane. But the nice thing also about this ride is I could change the route on the go. So if there's construction, I could route around it. If, something was, or if I decided I want to stay in a hotel and it's 10 miles away, that counts into my overall ride. So it all counted towards the goal of hitting a minimum of 18,000 miles. So that was kind of liberating too, to feel like not married to a route. I was like, oh, I can kind of alter it. Like, I think it's good to have a route because you like to have a plan, and it kind of mentally eases the load of the whole trip. You're like, okay, I'm going to make it. This is the way I'm going to go. But then along the way, of course, things come up and you change.
On the way around the world, you must have crossed 20, maybe 30 countries. How did you deal with the language barrier? I mean, I'm sure you don't speak any Serbian or Persian or some local dialects they speak in some little mountain town. How do you get along with that? I mean, I believe most countries speak more or less some sort of English.
Right.
But was a lot of like sign language? Like this, hey, me Jane, you Tarzan, I'm hungry. Was it like that? Or how did you get along with the language?
I know, I'm so lucky that I'm a native English speaker. Talk about a gift. But I do speak French. I do, and that helps me understand and speak some Spanish, Portuguese, Italian. And then I have traveled quite a bit in the Balkans and a bit in Ukraine, so I can read the Cyrillic alphabet. I can get basic things like go to the bakery and order this food. And I think one of my kind of inherent abilities is picking up some level of language or communication pretty easily. I haven't studied a lot, but I feel like maybe it's also a confidence thing that I feel like I can do this. And I try, and I'm very expressive and emotional, and I think that helps people understand what I need. So it really was fine, and then, oh my gosh, and then also you can just use Google Translate. You can literally speak into your phone and it translates it into another language. So that was like for more kind of specific things. But, I guess tools are really good now. And then it's like having the confidence to just deal with it when it comes up. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't having early in-depth conversations in Croatian. But a woman did come like in the dark to like the Croatian border, and I crossed the border, and she just said, "Welcome to Croatia," and rode with me the next 30K, and she was just so surprised that I was like, I had found like this apartment to stay in for the night above some women's house, because they don't really have a lot of hotels there, but they're still on Booking.com with their apartment for rent, and then she's like, "Oh, you're staying here?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is it." And then you knock on the door, and then you're like booking and like this, or, sleep or whatever. And they show you the way. I don't think they were happy I brought my bike into the room.
I can imagine. But I mean, throughout this whole journey, you're in different countries, you've got Google Translate, you're able to get food. But what was your nutritional strategy? And did you have certain cravings that you satiated throughout this whole period, or did you try to stick to the same stuff?
Oh, it's so much eating. It's just an incredible amount of eating to ride that far every day. I didn't worry too much about it. I just ate whatever I could. And I would try to eat like a real breakfast every morning. So that's like, if the hotel had a breakfast, that was great. Or I'd run to the bakery and get something. And then I try to eat a real dinner if I could. So I just ate a lot of pasta and rice and bread and waffles. And, I try to get some protein if I could. I found it was fine. I had to eat more than I wanted to. I wouldn't say I had any cravings because I was just consistently mindful of trying to eat a lot. So it was more of, doing it. And if I did get to eat something really delicious, then I really celebrated that. Like I ate a little steak in the Basque Country in Spain before I crossed into France. And I was like, I'm also very, like, I don't like to spend a lot of time eating. So I was like standing up eating these strips of steak, and I was like, oh, this is so good. I'm so happy right now. But getting like a hot dog in Australia at like a really remote gas station, that was kind of a low. But, you know, I mean, in the end, I had to eat like a lot of sweets because that's super high calorie and it's easy to find and it's fast. But, you know, in the end, you want real food. You know, you want something that tastes like pizza or something that tastes like a meal. I mean, a sit-down meal with vegetables and potatoes and a steak. That's like the dream. Sometimes it happened and sometimes it didn't.
So then I believe a follow-up question would be, how about your hydration strategy? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you decided to strictly stay with only bottled water, or you just scooped up the water from local river? I mean, you could catch some nasty stuff with drinking unknown water, right? So you don't need that. So how did you deal with that subject?
I mean, this is so crazy, but I
Yes, it
never
is.
filter water. I just drink it. But so I think like my guts are pretty strong at this point. But for this ride, usually I just had 2 bottles and I could sometimes I carried a couple extra bottles. But I could basically get to like a water source that I thought was good, something from like a tap or, you know, from bottled water, because I was on the road system, so I didn't really have to worry about it. But I stopped worrying about water about 10 years ago. Riding down from Alaska through Canada, I just started just filling up and drinking it. So I guess I do a mix of both.
Wow.
That reminds me of this funny GIF that I saw on Instagram with a Frenchie, you know, like a designer dog, and then like a pit bull, and one was like, I'm allergic to tap water, and the other one was like, I can eat, you know, anything and I'll grow. So yeah, you must have an iron stomach to be able to scoop water out of anywhere and not have any issues there. But your bandwidth, I'm so impressed with your mental bandwidth, because you're riding, you know, 300K a day or whatever the average was. You're doing your own stuff on Booking.com. You're finding your own food, but you also had a podcast along with your wife during the whole event. How did that work? And was it that you just wanted to share this with your wife, or was it actually something that you wanted to share with the world?
It was a new idea for this ride. I've never done this before. I'd never had a podcast, never wanted to. And then I thought, what a cool way to kind of document it. And I thought, I am never going to remember this stuff afterward. You know, my brain's going to be mashed potatoes. So I thought, if I do it daily, then I can look back on that. And then, I mean, it was so cool to do it live, you know, to update it daily. And it also was good for me to try to remember what happened in the days, because I would finish sometimes and I would just be totally shelled. Like, I have no idea what happened out there, just smoked, you know. And then I would have to like kind of sit down and think, what did happen out there, and then start sharing the stories. And I didn't really like take a long time to do that, because I'm also pretty obsessed with time. So I'd just be like, okay, let's roll. And I'd start talking about the day, and then more stuff would come up. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I think that'll help me long term kind of have more memories from the ride, just to even say it once. And then the coolest thing about the podcast, I mean, several things. So first of all, my mom loved it. And she was just so relieved to hear my voice every day and to know that I was okay, because I really love to push myself, and sometimes it gets a little scary. And it's just, gosh, it's just how I'm wired. You know, I really like to go deep. And so for her to have the reassurance, like, I'm okay, I'm actually having a good time, I'm healthy, I'm safe, things are good. For her to hear that every day was really good. And then people following the ride, it's like they could hear the stories, and then it encouraged them to get outside and do their own thing, or to come find me, you know. And I had done an open invite where anyone in the world could join me for any stretch. And this was so crazy and fun to have people just like waiting on the street corner, or riding towards me, and then I see them flip around and they're coming to join me. I had absolutely no idea when people would show up. And then it was always like this like crazy surprise, kind of like I was the scavenger hunt and they're like looking for me. And sometimes they would come for like literally 2 minutes. They'd just be like, hey, I just wanted to come find you. And sometimes they would stay for hours. And the personalities are totally different. Some people come, they hardly talk at all. Some people are chatterboxes. I just thought, oh, this is such a kick, because I'm like riding in the middle of nowhere in Australia and then somebody pops up, I just thought, this is so funny. And the only thing is like, I couldn't draft off of them, but they were welcome to draft off of me. So sometimes I'd be going into like the most brutal headwinds, like in Belgium. And then I have this whole crew of like 12 Flemish guys sitting on my wheel. They're huge. They'd be a great wind block. I'm like a little peanut. And then they're just like talking to each other in Flemish. And I can't even understand what's happening right now. Like this, like even the image of it, like I'm just like cracking up thinking about how that must have looked and like how it felt, because I had like no idea what was going on behind me. People are like making friends with each other, sharing snacks, learning that they like grew up in the same small town. And that was also such a cool part of the ride, was like the connections people made with each other just for showing up for my ride, which like turned into like a pop-up group ride for the world. Like this is so cool. But also kind of like chaotic, I guess.
Lael, maybe explain to us, to our viewers and listeners, a little bit about the rules. There's got to be certain restrictions or rules, right, when you do that. For example, can you do all of it in 2 continents? You have to cover 3, 4, 5 of them. Do you have to have a certain percentage of your overall miles on each continent?
Right.
Or can you pick the easiest? Do you have to go from east to west, north to south, or is that all up to you? Just give us a little bit of an idea about all that.
Totally. So I think there's like 5 rules, and this is for a Guinness World Record. So the rules are a minimum of 18,000 miles, so that's 29,000 kilometers. You have to either choose to ride east or west. You have to cross 2 opposite sides of the globe. So for me, that was Madrid, Spain, and Wellington, New Zealand. And that makes you go in both hemispheres. You can't really zigzag. You can go backwards 5 degrees. Sometimes you have to because the roads just weave like that. And you have to take commercial travel between continents. So flights, ferries, that kind of thing.
Quick interruption. Commercial travels. Does that then stop your clock, or they are included in your overall time?
It's included in the overall time. So that's another rule. It's a continuous clock. So once you start, everything counts. So that's when you're eating, when you're sleeping, when you're getting your bike worked on, when you get a flat tire, when you're talking to someone on the side of the road, everything counts.
Wow. So evidently, I've been told that you had a very minimal setup on your bike. And that's something that you're going to have to drag along with you all the way around the world.
Right.
So what did you decide to bring with you, and what are maybe some of those things that didn't make the cut?
Yeah, so I have navigation, so the Wahoo, a spare Wahoo in case that one broke, charging cords, my phone, a power bank to charge my devices, extra SRAM batteries, a SRAM charger, a wall plug, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, bivy, a multi-tool, spare tube, sealant, tire plugs, super glue. I had a spot tracker to show my location every 5 to 15 minutes. And then my bike, it was required that I have a power meter, heart rate monitor to prove that I actually did the ride. I had, a jersey, 2 rain jackets, rain pants. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff. A pump. Basically I brought what I thought I needed to survive. And then it's like I couldn't think about every catastrophe that could happen. I didn't bring like a spare derailleur in case mine broke. I thought, okay, if something breaks, I can ride to a bike shop and try to sort it out. I had like enough food for a few hours, and then I'd have to find food or water. I brought my wallet, AirPods so I could listen to stuff. I think that's mostly it.
So maybe if you can put a number on it. There's you and then the bike and all the luggage. How much is that? The bike and the luggage. What, like 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 10 pounds?
Nah,
What
probably
was
like,
it?
I think generally my setups are around like 45. That's usually
Pound or kilo?
Pounds. That's usually what ends up happening. Even with my mountain bikes, it ends up being about 45 pounds. I didn't weigh it. I thought, what is the difference? I'm going to have it no matter what. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to change what I have according to what it says on the scale. That's just what it is. If I have a bunch of food, it's going to weigh more. The thing that's heavy are the electronics. They're like bricks. But then I'm like, I like that stuff and I need it. I want to keep my phone charged. I don't want to be waiting, charging it somewhere. So that stuff is heavy. I guess the tools are heavy. They're made out of metal. I don't know. It felt fine. People would pick up my bike and they'd be like, they're like, oh man, this is a lot heavier than I thought. Cause it looked like pretty tidy, cause I pack it small. Cause I'm like, I know how to pack my bike. I've been doing this for 10 years.
Jeez, but you have mentioned quite a few chargeable devices, and that's what I'm always curious about.
Yeah, I
I
know.
understand that every night you can go into a hotel or Airbnb and actually plug
Right.
it, but being so dependent on technology to help you get around the world, did you ever run into a situation where you just couldn't charge your stuff and had to kind of wing it?
No.
No.
This one, I had a power bank that charge would last me a full extra 24 hours. So I knew I had that with me. I recharged that every night. I do have a dynamo hub that I have set up for the front light just because that's a safety thing. I'm like, I cannot run out of light. I need to be seen. And in the past, I've used a light where I can charge out of the back of it, like charge the power bank. But I got tired of doing that just because in the end, you have cables everywhere. It looks like a bomb. It's like, I'm not doing that anymore. For this ride, I will get somewhere where I can plug into a wall at least once a day, and then just be mindful of the things I need to charge, and just kind of know where I'm at. So it's like this kind of accountability of like, how's my body? How's my bike? How are my electronics? Where am I going to stay? And then that's simple. That's like living on the bike. People do that for, years. I mean, I ride in Alaska in like -40 with electronics. Batteries do not last well there. I don't have electronic shifting there because the batteries would never last for it. But I do like travel there for days on end and I can do it there. So I can definitely do it on the road system.
So for a better understanding for our listeners and viewers, you set a record with 108 days, 12 hours, and excuse me, I forgot the minutes and seconds. So 108 days, 3.5 months. I believe a fully charged credit card was a quite important part of your travel, wouldn't it? If you don't want to, you don't have to put a number on amount on it, but I believe it would cost $1 or $2 to travel around the world,
Right.
even on a bike.
Totally.
Did you go and pay for it, or you had partners, sponsors, they helped you, or you charged some sponsor later on, or you had some
Totally.
whatever media partners, some bike partners, did they help you with to cover all these expenses?
Yeah, I had a budget from Specialized, my bike sponsor, for $40,000. And the condition was that I would get that reimbursed after. I mean, I could have sent in invoices while I was riding, but I was so at capacity mentally. So I saved
Of course.
I saved a lot of my own money to be able to pay for it up front and get it reimbursed later. And that was my budget for the trip, $40,000.
Okay, so you mentioned Specialized. I have a question What about Booking.com? Are they going to be a sponsor of yours?
Wouldn't that
in
be
the future?
good?
Hey,
Wouldn't that
yeah.
be great? You know,
Yeah.
people would joke the whole time I was out there. They're like, "You must be sponsored by Coca-Cola because it's in every photo." Like, I think I sponsor them. I'm just buying the stuff. You know, what do you find at a gas station everywhere? Cold Coke, full of sugar. You know, that's great. But no, I mean, yeah, some of these, like, yeah, it'd be a great fit. Booking.com, that'd be great. But no, I just use it because it works.
But tell us about some of your other sponsors that helped you along the way.
Totally. I have such great sponsors. So, I mean, this is really just for the past, I guess I started full sponsorship in 2018, and I paid for everything for the first 10 years before that. But since that time, I worked half the year in restaurants and bike shops to pay for traveling the world on my own without racing before that. But since I've been sponsored, my life's so much better. I don't have to work like at a pizza place to pay for it. So I work with Specialized. I work with SRAM. I mean, I don't have to list them all. Rafa, you know, my first sponsor is Revelate Designs. That's from Alaska. That makes the bags that I carry all my equipment in. Yeah, they're great. They're awesome.
So if you started on your bike, actually double question. First question, where at what city place you start your travel around the world? And second, how much in percentage of that bike came back home with you?
Yeah, so I started in Chicago, Illinois, and the parts that came back, same helmet, same frame, fork, headset, handlebars, shifters, aero bars, wheels, same saddle, same seat post. The things I changed out were tires and drivetrain. And honestly, nothing failed. I just proactively changed stuff out before I thought it would wear out. So tires every 3,000 miles. If I changed out my tires, I'd change out my chain. Every maybe 6,000 miles, I'd get a new cassette and chain rings. I think I forgot about my wheel bearings and I changed them out after 20,000 kilometers. Nothing really broke. You know, like my rear derailleur, I like wore off one of the teeth on one of the pulleys. That's it. You know, I don't think I'm super hard on my equipment. I'm pretty average size. So I think it all worked really, really well. I just thought, okay, I have to try to change stuff when a bike shop's actually available. So I'd kind of try to plan it in, more or less, be like, okay, I think I could get somewhere in this city. Like Australia was a little bit tough like that because stuff is so spread out. So I'm like, okay, I'll get the bike rebuilt when I start in Perth, and then I'll go to a shop in Adelaide like 3,000 kilometers later because that's the first opportunity, and I'll get new tires there. You know, try to make the best plan I could. I mean, all this stuff, you're like, this is what, how am I going to deal with this? You know, I don't have like a team coming up with a good strategy for me. I'm just winging it. But I like that too. It's fun. You know, it's like, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? One time I got my tires changed out. The next day I ran over a nail that was like, you know, as long as like 2 knuckles into my finger. And I started pulling it out, and I realized it was a screw and it was threaded in there. Pull it out, figure out how long it is, and I was like, I am in trouble. You know, that length, it could have just punctured right through my rim tape, through my rim. I pull it out, I spin the tire, it's set up tubeless, it's spitting sealant, put a little super glue on it, let it dry for like 1 minute, spin the tire, sealant stops, it's sealed up and held for thousands of miles.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Jeez.
You know, this stuff, it's like, because in the moment you're like, this is not good, you know, and then I'm thinking, okay, I'm near Seattle, Washington. There's a bike shop probably somewhere around. Glad this didn't happen in Australia. you know? I mean, there's always a solution, but sometimes I don't want to be riding my rim, you know? That's a solution. That's terrible. So I was like, okay, you know, and in the moment, it's kind of cool. Like my response generally isn't to freak out because I'm like, what is going to work? What can I do right now to try to deal with what is happening so I can save time and get back on the road? And sometimes it takes an hour to fix something. That's just how it is. But we've gotten to a point where the equipment is so good that I had very few problems.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it. And we could talk about this all day long. I have so many more questions, but let's go back a little bit. Why did you start backpacking in the first place? And for our listeners and our viewers, can you really explain what that is?
Yeah, so bike packing. I started bike touring right out of college, and I really got into it because I got a bike to get to work. I've never had a car. I don't drive, and I had a job that was like 4 miles away from where I lived. So I started borrowing like really oversized bikes to get to work. You know, you don't know that bikes are supposed to fit. And I had to go downhill to work and up a huge hill to get home. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. Why would anybody do this? This sucks. And then I realized pretty quickly on, I was like, oh, this is a great way to get around. It's fast. It's pretty easy. So I started riding around town for transportation. Then I did my first ride to the next city over to visit my sister, and that was 50 miles away. And that was because I didn't have bus fare. I didn't have money to take the bus, which is what I usually did. So I was like, maybe I could ride there. And at this point, I had gotten myself my own fixed gear bike. It was new. I thought it was like the nicest bike in the world. And I rode it until the crank fell off. But I made it to Seattle. And I was like, oh, if I could make it to Seattle, I could ride across the country. I'd never heard of it. You know, I grew up in Alaska. Nobody did that. And so that's what I did like 2 months later. I got a used bike, but it was definitely the nicest bike I'd ever had. I think it was like $200, and it was a road bike from the 80s. And I couldn't put a rack on it. It didn't have eyelets. It couldn't bear the weight. So I just put a little saddlebag with one change of clothes and I think a sleeping bag. And then I rode down the East Coast. And that was at that time with my boyfriend at the time. And we were like, oh yeah, this will be fun. And that was in 2008, you know. And then, gosh, I thought I'd just do one trip and be done with it. And then here I am, like, I don't know, 18 years later, and it's kind of become my whole life. Never thought I would race. I didn't really even see cycling as a sport. I just wasn't aware of that. You know, it just seemed so kind of distant from where I was, just riding to get to work. And then now I realize, like, it is the same. Like, you're pushing the pedals, dealing with the elements, doing your best, and you get to spend all that time outside for that period of time. So, you know, it is the same. I can't believe I'm still doing it, but the more I do it, the more fun it gets.
So now you're from Alaska, right?
Yeah.
Bobby is from the so-called, lower 49s?
Lower 48.
And lower 48. Sorry, yeah, that's the number. I'm from softy Europe. Did you ever had a bike, one of these fat bikes where you can ride on snow? Because for Bobby and me, when we hear Alaska, we think 50 feet of snow for 10 months of the year.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's not like that, but pretty close, isn't it? So did you ever ride on snow? How is that?
Yeah.
Does it make you tougher or better?
Have you guys done it?
No.
Oh, it is like a different planet because everything turns into a possibility in the winter because it's frozen. So you can ride over rivers and lakes and overland, over swamps because the ground's hard. And then so you take this fat bike, like either 4 or 5 inch tires basically, but you have to run them at like really low pressure, like 4 PSI, and like a beach ball. So you can kind of float over the snow. And then in some ways it's like like being a kid, because you're like, I cannot believe I'm riding across this lake right now. And then in other ways, it's horrible because it's so hard. I'm sure you've ridden in deep sand. That feeling, you're like, like really cranking, and then just like either you lose your balance and you're kicked off or you slide out. It's like that, but the equipment is made like to give you the best chance of trying to ride it. So, it's like if the snow is like 6 inches or less of fresh snow, you could ride it. If it gets deeper than that, you're off the bike, pushing it in deep snow, like post-holing, sinking in with your feet. That's hard. And like the riding in itself, if you're going like 10K an hour, you're like, oh, I'm doing great. So slow for so much work. But then you're like, I am riding my bike overland across Alaska. This is insane. Like the ability to get to do that stuff that is totally off limits when it's melted in summer conditions, you can ride, So then I'm like, this race I did this past February, I rode the beginning of the Iditarod Trail, which is an overland dog sled route that goes just.
Yeah, I know. I heard all about it. For a split second, I also thought I will be doing that on my bike, but only for a split second. But yeah,
you should. You should. It's the most outrageous thing to do. It is unbelievable what you get to see out there. In like the human physical experience, it changed my life. Even just doing the first 500K, and this year I'm doing the full thing, which is like 1600K. It's so wild. It's so wild, and it's so beautiful, and it's so scary, but it's like so incredible that that's even possible, to be out there and to like look around and be like, I am here. There's nothing like it that I've ever experienced. So Jens, you should do it. You don't even have to race it. You could just do it, and that's the first time I did this. I just did it as a tour with my wife and a friend, and we just set out to ride the first 500K, just the three of us, just to see what it was like. And I was like, that was incredible to do, just to see it, and to experience what life is like out there, because people actually do live out there, which is insane.
I have to ask about this because, being from Alaska, one of your first races was the Tour Divide. Most people would consider that a very big challenge on its own. Yeah. But you decided to ride 2,000 miles to the start from Anchorage, Alaska to Banff, Canada. Was that just like, I don't know, your activation, your warm-up? Like, what motivated you to add 2,000 miles to another almost 3,000-mile journey?
This was so cool. So this was 2015. I was finishing like a 10-month tour, first in Europe, then in Africa, then in the Middle East. And I was like in Israel. I had just done my first ever bikepacking race in Israel, and I was like, okay, this race, it's a test. If I like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly home to Alaska. I'm going to buy myself the nicest bike I can get, and then a week later, I'm going to ride down through Canada, through Alaska and Canada to Banff. I'm going to take a week off, and I'm going to do this race. And I had never done a long ride like that by myself. I had never connected Alaska to the lower 48 by any means except for airplane. So I was like, this is my chance to see how my home connects to the rest of the country, to have this wild adventure, and to get to the start line, because I have to get there somehow. And then I thought, along the way, I'll be so used to my equipment, what I'm bringing, what I need along the way. And then this ride through Canada is way more remote than the Tour Divide, even though it's on paved roads, just because there are hardly any resources out there. It's like you're lucky if there's a gas station every 150 miles. So I was like, that's when I started not filtering my water, because I was like, I brought a filter, like one of those UV ones that you stick in the water and it does like a smiley face and the water's supposed to be good. And I was like, I don't even think this is doing anything. So I just sent it home. And then I was like just filling up my bottle by the stream and I was drinking it. And I was like, I'm fine. I can do this. This is fine. So I took 19 days to ride down, a little faster than I thought. I was like, okay, I'm going to ride 100 miles a day. And that'll be like the right time frame. And I ended up riding it a bit faster, took 10 days off, and then started the race. And the race, all kinds of things went wrong. But, I think that ride to the start also gave me the mental resilience during the race where I was like, I have put so much into this already. I'm not quitting. I'm going to finish this thing no matter what. And I did, and it wasn't pretty, but I broke the women's record by 2 days on that first run. So I was like, okay, it worked somehow. It worked and kind of led me to where I am now. That was a big turning point for me.
So on these thousands of miles across Alaska, Canada, and then the divide ride, did you ever count how many moose, elk, black bear, and grizzly bears you encountered? Did you actually counted them, or just another bear? I don't count anymore. After 100 bears, I stop.
It was probably about 100, and it was
really,
yeah, and it was so crazy. I mean, I had seen bears from growing up in Alaska, but I saw so many on that ride because I started like May 1st, and that's when everything's starting to grow. So these roadside ditches were like full of fresh grass and the bears come down to the ditch to eat. So I saw so many. And at first I was like, why am I seeing so many bears in it? And then the locals told me that they're like, oh, it's because of all the fresh growth. They come down to eat. So then I'm thinking like, whenever I am in these areas, there are probably hundreds of bears. I just don't see them because they're like hidden in the trees or somewhere else. And that ride, I even saw a white black bear, which is like they locally call it a spirit bear because they're so rare. It's like an albino black bear, and it's supposed to, kind of protect you. It was really cool, but I didn't know about it before I saw it. And I was like, what am I seeing? It's a white bear. It's not a polar bear. It's a white bear, but it's little, so it's just a white black bear. It's so cool.
So did you ever consider that they might look at you as a source of food? Like, she looks yummy. No? Alrighty.
I mean, gosh. Yeah, that's a risk. That's a real risk. And I know people that have been killed by bears. And it's really, really sad. But honestly, I know a lot more people that have been hit by cars. So that was my real fear. That's my real fear with any of these rides. Even in a remote place like Alaska, there's still traffic, so that's like the number one safety issue. Bears, it's possible, but I think the risk is so much lower that I'm fine with it. And bears, they generally don't want to attack. It would take like a total psychopathic bear to attack. So that I have that in my mind too. One time though, I was riding in Nome, Alaska. That's the end of the Iditarod Trail. And I was riding this remote road out, and then I see a grizzly bear because they're pretty common up there. It's above the Arctic Circle. And usually my tactic is to like yell and be like, hey, hey, hey. And then the bear like runs away because they're like, who is this crazy person? And then that bear actually like reared up on its hind legs. And I was like, oh no. I was like, oh no. Like, this is actually real. It's the first time a bear hasn't been afraid of me. And I just turned around and started sprinting the other way on my bike. And I knew in my mind, even in that moment, I knew if the bear really wants to get me, the bear will get me. Because they're faster. They're faster than me on a bike. They're just really fast. And then I like look over my shoulder, and it had lost interest. So I was like, okay. I made it, But I mean, that's after seeing hundreds and hundreds of bears, So I really am not worried about. I have been hit by cars twice, So I'm like, that's a much more real risk and something I'm afraid of, and something I think a lot more about.
Well, besides your ability to set records and your palmars in so many of these long distance events, and your ability to sprint away from bears, you've become a representative on an international stage for your sport, and you've done a lot to give back. Can you tell us a little bit about the GRIT program?
Yeah, totally. The GRIT program is Girls Riding into Tomorrow. I started it with a friend in 2017 in Alaska, and the idea was to make a program that we wish we could have done when we were 12, because we didn't grow up riding bikes, and then we found it later in life and just loved it and thought kids will love this. Basically, it's 6 weeks building up to a final camp out. In the Alaskan version, we rode together 2 to 3 times a week, and then the final camp out's 3 days riding from their school in East Anchorage out to a cabin on a glacier over 2 days. And gosh, so cool. And these kids, like when they start, they've never ridden more than 5 miles, and then at the end they're riding 60. And it's designed to work with girls that aren't necessarily athletic, but want to work hard and challenge themselves. Often, I work with teachers to nominate students that they think would be a good fit, and it's often the kids that are like, not necessarily the highest achievers in school or sport, but are engaged. And I work generally with Title I schools, so that's low-income students, and they get to keep the bikes at the end. And Specialized has provided, gosh, I don't know, maybe 60, 70 bikes for this, entry-level mountain bikes, because I think that's what kids are excited about. And it's also a good bike for Alaska because the roads are pretty bad and there's a lot of dirt. But the kids, like, if they attend all the sessions and they finish the final camp out, then they get to keep the equipment, and then they can come back in following years as student mentors. And some of the kids, like, now they're, gosh, they started when they were 12 and now they're like 20. And a few of them have come back like until they're like 18. It's pretty cool, but it's a limited group. It's usually about, 11 to 15 kids. And I don't set any requirements beyond they just have to participate. So they can ride as slow as they want, fast as they want. They can talk, they can do their own thing. I just think, when I was a kid, I didn't do that, and I would have loved it. That's the age, 12, 13 years old, when you want to do something hard. You're kind of like gaining your independence from your family, and, so you have this drive to kind of take on a challenge, something you can sink your teeth into. So I've done that for, I guess I did like 4 seasons in Alaska. I had a friend take over that program because I don't live there anymore. I live in Arizona. So I started a new one down here, and I've done 2 years of that. And it's really cool. I know like kids would do better with a year-round program, but I just don't have the time to always do it. So I kind of set like a time frame of when I can do it and work with teachers and volunteers and try to make it happen. It's a lot of work, but it's like the kids love it, so that's why I do it.
You also, alongside with Komoot, you host women's rallies, and you try to encourage more women to go on bikes. What do you think is the biggest point or the biggest fear women have, or what do you think is the biggest obstacles they have to overcome to actually, yes, I can do this, yes, I want to go out and I want to ride mountain bikes, gravel, or on the road? What do you think, what does it take for you, or what is your first tip to women?
Totally. I organized the rallies because of that, because of the lack of participation in the racing I do. So often I show up and I'm like the only woman, or 10% of the field is women. When it's like an open entry, which I love about bikepacking. Often it's no entry fee, no prize money. Anybody could be there, but I noticed that they aren't there. So then I started the rallies because I was like, well, we don't have to do it in a race. We can do it in an event that feels like less stressful, where it's like the goal is to finish. And then I don't know exactly what the hesitation is, but I have found if you create an event, you invite people, or you open up the possibility that they can be there, they show up, and this is like in racing too, it's like, it is incredible that endurance gravel has exploded globally. People want to ride 200 miles in a day. That's insane. But if you make an event, you set a date, you set a course, you invite the public, they will show up. So then what I found with the rallies, I will be hosting my 8th one in November, so in a month, out of my home in Tucson. And at this point we've limited the size of the group to, it's supposed to be 50, but it'll probably be about 70. But we've had 2,000 women apply that want to be there. Age range of 19 to 76 years old, coming from different walks of life. They have kids, they have grandkids, they just got out of college, all kind of abilities and backgrounds. And I mean, you do need a bike, you need camping equipment. You have to the goal is for everyone to be self-sufficient. But having a place where they can join a community doing it makes a world of difference. That's all we're offering. It's like they have to figure it out along the way, but they have other women that they can talk to about it, plan with, prepare with, and then this goal of coming and being there. I don't know. It's been so cool just to see who shows up. And then I have, learned so much and heard so many super inspiring stories from these rides where it's like they come in and they're terrified. They're like, how am I ever going to ride 400 miles in 8 days and camp out and find food and find water and make sure my bike functions and, physically do it. And then by the end of the week, they're like experts, and people come in, one woman borrowed her dad's mountain bike from 1990. He did it. And the riding is not easy. I always put in a ton of climbing. It's half, because it's beautiful, half gravel, half pavement, in more remote places sometimes, just because the riding's better, it's less traffic, places to camp and that kind of stuff. But to see what happens as a result of getting people together and the ideas they exchange, and then how they bring this back to their own community, organize their own events, start their own podcasts, do the things they can to encourage other people that are scared to do this. It's insane, because it's one thing for me to tell people, you can do this. You can definitely do this. This is totally possible. You just have to ride 50 miles a day, find food, find a place to stay. But then for them to actually realize that they can, and they do, and to show up feeling afraid, and then to still do it anyway. I'm like, this is insane. They could have done it on their own 100%, absolutely. But maybe they never had the idea, or maybe they never had a place where they felt confident enough to show up. So I'm like, this is, for me, it's I'm out riding around the world thinking about these stories, because I'm like, it's incredible what people can do if they decide they want to try and they kind of stick with it. I mean, I think anybody could do that, but then, of course, there are always going to be challenges. And I think some insecurity, my biggest insecurity getting into the sport was navigation. I am terrible. I get lost in a building. I don't remember where I've been. I don't remember how to get there. So having GPS changed my life. I'm like, oh, I don't have to feel 100% lost all the time, But I think it's different for different people. They're afraid of camping. They're afraid of their bike breaking. They're afraid of being alone. They're afraid of the dark. There's so many things that could keep you at home, even if you really want to do something. So then I'm like, well, how do we make them feel like I'm going to leave home and I'm going to just jump into the deep end? And I don't know, somehow they do, I can't make that decision for anybody. And I don't want them to feel scared like insecure out there, but I think when we learn is when we get out of our comfort zone, and me organizing an event is very out of my comfort zone. I don't like it, but I do it because I believe in it. I really don't like it though.
Well, one thing that you just said, which I found really cool, was I'm out riding my bike around the world. You can actually say that. Like, I'm sure a lot of people actually say that, but they've never done it. So what is the next challenge for you?
Oh man, I actually this week, because I've been sick, I've been like scheming. I have more time to think, and I've set basically a basic schedule from now until next August, I think. So this fall, I've got the women's rally in November, and then I'm hoping to host a season of Tucson Grit, the girls program, before Christmas. And then in the new year, I will go up to Alaska to prepare for the Iditarod Trail Invitational 1000, so the big ride. And then in June, I'm going to race the Tour Divide again because a woman broke my record this year, so I have to go try to get it back. And then in July, I'm going to race the Transcontinental. So that's the road race, biggest bikepacking race in Europe. It's a road race from west to like Istanbul. And there are 4 checkpoints, and you make your own route. So it's kind of like around the world, but just Europe. And I really loved riding across Europe, so I think I'll have fun doing that again. But on a different route, I guess.
Lael, thank you so much for being our guest and sharing all these incredible stories with us. We keep both fingers crossed for you for next, I believe next challenge will be the Iditarod. So yeah, best of luck for that. Hopefully next year we can get you back as a guest. You tell us about all your new adventures. Thanks again a million times for being our guest tonight. It was absolutely fantastic and mind-blowing to me. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. There will be loads more fascinating content popping up there, including more great interviews with top guests like Lael. And please, keep dropping your questions for us in the comments and check our description below to find us on social media and Patreon to support the channel, like these great people.